Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles Podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks so much for joining us this week, wherever you're finding it, listening to us on whatever platform you use for podcasts, watching on YouTube or SaskTel Max TV on demand. Thank you very much. As always, you got me. I'm Alex.
And since Steve's not here, I'll actually introduce myself. I'm Greg today. I'm Greg every day, but today especially.
Is this like where when Steve's not on screen, we start asking him or start asking, where's Steve? Like Poochie?
Maybe, but I'm not gonna
Poochie's
do that today.
dead. No, not that far.
No, Steve is not alive. He has not gone to his home planet and never
No.
returning.
And he's not going to be able to stop our Simpsons puns this week.
No, he won't be.
But
But we need a replacement Steve.
That's right. We do need a replacement Steve, and normal replacement Steve actually. Maybe he'll be replacement Greg next week. That's normally Jeff Fairholm. Maybe next week when you're gone, Greg, we'll get Jeff on. But we have a different replacement Steve this week. I'm really excited to get to it. Give us a follow on Twitter at PifflesPod. I'm at RealAlexD.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Piffles Podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Well, let's bring on replacement Steve here. This week, he actually reached out to us. I'm pumped to bring him on here to talk Riders, the new videos he's making on YouTube right now, and much more. Let's jump to the opening kickoff. 2007 Grey Cup champions with the Riders. You were the receivers coach back then. Mr. Paul LaPolice from CFL on TSN now. Paul, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to be on. And the coolest thing I heard you already talk about was Jeff Fairholm, because Jeff Fairholm and I worked together. I don't know if you knew that, with the Argonauts.
Really?
For 2000. My first time in the league, he was the receiver coach.
Right.
And he was only there for about 4 weeks, and then there was something that went on that he left the organization. But he's a great guy. We've been friends for a long time. Yeah, I spent about 4 months with Jeff. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff listens
it's weird.
to the show.
Yeah, he listens to the show. Like we talk about all the time how we pinch ourselves thinking that a guy that we watched and wanted to be
Great
listens
player.
to our show regularly and gives us crap whenever he doesn't agree with us.
So you got to have some dirt on Jeff here that you can tell us then, huh?
Oh yeah, like he was funny. Like, so, you know, like he did not agree in a sense how the organization was running. And I was a young kid, didn't know any better, so I was just had my head down and just doing whatever work. And like he got into some arguments with the head guy and the GM and everything, and he was awesome through it, man. Like, so then he basically said, I don't need to be here anymore when he left us. Yeah.
Next time we have him on, we'll dig into that a little bit.
Oh God. Good stories.
Well, we're here to talk Riders, of course. And 3-0 to start the season. Everything's great in Riderville right now. Well, until the Trevor Harris injury, of course, but we'll talk about that in a minute here. But Paul, what are you seeing right now from the Riders in this 3-0 start that has basically turned them around from the last couple of years?
So I would say this. There is, in my preseason evaluation, I thought this team could be the team that wins the most games, flips the script the most. Why? Because one, obviously a healthy Trevor Harris, and now that's going to have to be dealt with. But the number two thing is anytime a team is worse than the CFL in turnover margin, or they give up, they turn it over a ton. I expected Trevor not to turn it over as much. And then they were last in the CFL, or second to last in takeaways on defense. And just knowing the hiring of Corey, where he came from, Toronto, the last 2 years been they've taken the ball away better than any other team. So I felt like, well, they had 52 takeaways last year. If he can bring that culture on defense of taking the football away, they're going to be successful, because that's a very important turnover margin. And that's what's happened. They had 3 turnovers themselves week 1 against Edmonton, but they took the ball away 3 times themselves. All of them, it seemed like all of them were in the fourth quarter, and to get them in a position to win the game. The next game, they're +1 in turnover margin. Well, that turnover came 30 seconds left, tie game, when Hamilton was backed up. CJ Avery, catches a tip ball basically, and then they kick the field goal and win the game. They finished +1. And then last week they dominated and finished +4 and took the ball away. So when you can do that defensively, you got a really good chance. And obviously with Shea Patterson, that's going to be important for them to still play well. They got to create some short fields for a young offense.
So, of course, with that is Mark Mueller's offense being a first-time offensive coordinator. What are your thoughts on his offensive schemes so far with the Riders?
So I think I've only watched one of his games start to finish as a coach. And what's nice for me this year is I have what's called DV Sport, which all the coaches use, and I get the film downloaded to me so I can watch all the film. I think they're trying. It'll be interesting how they look, because it doesn't really matter what Trevor is doing. Trevor did the quick, short passing game. They did some nice play action passes to take some shot plays downfield. That week 1 game, they did hit some nice crossing routes for play action, for big shots. Sean Bain for one of his touchdowns. But I think for this game, they just got to find a way to get easy completions and let Shea Patterson run a little bit. And he was impressive in college in Michigan, and he can move. I like quarterbacks who have some mobility, but there's a difference. So coaching in this league forever, having a lot of American friends, being an American, I would see coaches all the time that talk to me about, hey, this guy can play for you. Well, he's really athletic. He can run, but he's only a 50% completion guy. And that's what people don't understand about our league. You have to throw the ball in our league to be successful. And the average, like 68 is usually average in the league. It's even higher this year. So you have to have accuracy, but also I want throwers who've got the ability to run. I want throwers who can run. Everyone tries to hand you runners who they think can throw. So they always give you these, real mobile guys, but they're not very accurate. So they're not going to succeed. On 2nd and 10, you got to throw completions, and 2nd and 8, you can't run the ball all the time. So I think Shea's got to be able to show that he can do that. Like, you're going to be able to run the ball with him. You're going to be able to pull the zone read, stuff like that. But can he, 2nd and long, drop back when it's cover 4 and find the open spots and throw to the people? So I think Mark's just got to keep it simple for him and get the run game going, get the quick screens going, and then hopefully he can get some shot plays eventually.
Now, the Riders finally got that run game going last week with AJ Ouellette. Took them a few weeks to get that going. Obviously, I would expect Toronto to stack the box, especially with Shea Patterson as quarterback. You're the offensive coordinator. What would you be doing? Would you be still focusing on the run game and trying to get that going to alleviate some pressure off of Shea Patterson, or and like maybe shorten the playbook a little bit and have shorter passes, hitches, screens, that kind of thing? Or are you just saying, you know what, let's let them have the whole thing and run our regular offense?
So I would say this: you still have to run the football. And I used to yell when I was in TSN last year doing Rider games, or like in the studio watching. So what happens is you go to the studio, you're on the air for real quick, but then we're like everybody else. We just watch the game as a fan, and then we come back on at halftime. I used to scream and holler at the TV, like to the Riders to run the football. Like, I came on the air at halftime one time doing stats. I'm like, will you please run the football, right? And Kelly Jeffrey's a good football coach. He was a friend of mine. But you have to. I get, even if you're not running the ball well, you just don't want to put it in your quarterback's hands when they're young guys 45 times a game, because bad things happen. So you have to find ways to establish a run. And part of that can be, well, don't just try to run tight inside zone right up in the center out of shotgun like everybody else does. You have to do some creative things, some what I would call wrong way runs. You got to run the ball to the slots, like all the stuff I used to do with Dembski, and different ways of running the football. So it helps your O-line, create some distraction for the DBs, and then hopefully the play action passes will come up, and you got to hit your shots when you call the play actions.
Now, flipping to the other side of the ball, you've been putting out your videos on YouTube, Coach's Breakdown with Paul LaPolice, breaking down some X's and O's. Monday, you just put out one about the Riders and the defense causing takeaways. What have you been seeing from the Riders defense that has made them such ball hawks this year?
Well, they play a little bit more zone. Like usually when you're in zone coverage, a lot of these takeaways have happened. They've been in zones, and I thought Avery's been really good. CJ, he's done a really nice job, and he's been around the ball. He's got a couple takeaways himself. So, when you play zones, you can look at the quarterback and be able to make plays on the football. And Thurman's been a beast. He's certainly been pretty impressive. And, like for two of the games, I just think like Edmonton, I was happy that they didn't get blitz happy in the Edmonton game. They just kept doing what they were going to do. And then eventually, they got the takeaway. They created a fumble, and then they got the other takeaways. So, I think how Corey's run defense has been bend but don't break. So they're going to give up some yardage, but they're going to keep you out of the end zone, and they're going to get takeaways. And that's been kind of a Calgary MO for a long time. And he came over from Calgary, brought that to Toronto, was pretty successful, and I think they're doing the same thing here now.
Is there a reason, like playing lots of zone defense, is there a reason in the CFL that we see more zone defenses than we do see man-to-man?
Yeah, I think for a couple reasons. One reason is we used to think that, well, with all these illegal contact penalties happening where you can't touch them anywhere past 5 yards, that you used to be able to collision a receiver 10 yards downfield as long as you were set in your set position. And when they got rid of that, everyone felt, oh my God, people are going to just go to zone. I don't know if that's as much of an issue as you have more players on the roster defensively now with all the, designated Americans. So you've got a couple more guys, at least one or two more guys that you could do a sub package with. And what does that mean? You could, all right, let's put another linebacker on the field and play zone, or let's get another DB in the game and put him as a high player and use, take the will linebacker out of the game. I think that's a second reason. But I just think the biggest reason is teams don't want to play a lot of man coverage because they're going to give up explosive plays. Because when it's man coverage, usually the quarterback can recognize it's man, and then the quarterback goes, there's my man throw. I'm going to take this shot, and then I'm going to look across the field after. I'm throwing this corner out, and I'm going to progress across after that. Where in zone coverage, there's a lot more information you got to process. It takes a long time, and if your quarterback's not reading it quickly, then the protection breaks down and gets to them. So I think the ball's out faster, and quarterbacks know where they're going more. Where zone, it takes, in simplest terms, it takes more time. And there's so many different types of zone nowadays. When I first came into the league, teams played cover 3, 2 different ways, and they played man coverage and they played cover 0. Now there's 5 different types of quarters, cover 4. There's match, which is like a combination man and zone based on the route concept. So there's so much more coverage now to confuse QBs.
And actually, just a follow-up to that, with defensive backs and just as a whole, the whole backfield, we've seen that it takes them time to gel. When you have a young defensive backfield group together, would it make more sense just to play man to start with, just till they get used to each other and simplify things, or should you just be throwing zone at them right away?
Yeah, man is the easiest because it's literally cover that guy, cover this guy, you cover that guy. I got that guy. But where it makes it a little bit more difficult is in our league is you have to do what I call banjo or switching. And what that means is when 2 receivers come close together, there's an opportunity for one receiver to pick the DB covering the other receiver. So that happens all the time. When you see somebody wide open, well, it's usually a mistake in man coverage. So teams have to do what's called switching or banjoing, which means they play it off at 5 yards. And then when they come together, the outside guy takes the outside breaking route. The inside guy takes the inside breaking route. But for young receivers or young DBs, they got to be on the same page, or, all right, I'm taking this one. And if they miscommunicate, all of a sudden somebody's wide open. You see that happen all the time. So, yes, it's easy to be in man, but you also have to factor in, all right, they got to learn how to switch. They got to factor to learn all this. And like Coach Ritchie, when I worked with Dave Ritchie in Winnipeg, anytime that would happen, like he played a lot of man, and anytime they played too much man, and like if we busted a switch and all of a sudden somebody were running, he would yell at the DBs, "We're not switching the rest of the game." "Well, what if we get picked?" "I don't care. Don't switch anymore." So there is some problems in man because you have to teach that stuff. But you got to teach them to play cover 3 to start. How do we rush 4 and drop 9? That's a lot of. It's not a lot of fun as an OC to find holes in that defense.
Oh, you mentioned explosive plays. Considering the dribble kick is probably the most explosive play in the CFL right now, why are defenses playing so far off of that line, especially on second long, second to medium, when they know when Jetron Antui's out there, that's a possibility?
Because it's a minority play, like it doesn't happen often, like it's, you're going to get more people taking shots downfield. And the thing I think is interesting is I'm surprised no other teams have done the same thing. As like Montreal's the only team that's done it. I'm going to do a coach's playbook on it this week, but they're the only team that has done it. So you're just not seeing it enough. And really, there's not much you can do. You're basically saying, you can do this. You can play man-to-man on that running back. So there are some zone coverages where you can play man-to-man on the back. So you can go, okay, when we play Montreal on 2nd and 15 or greater, we're going to play matchup zone, and then you're man-to-man on the running back and make sure you're close to them in case a dribble kick happens. But if you're in a true zone, you're just hoping your linebackers get there. And 2 of them, they do a good job because they kick it and recover it, and there's somebody right there every time. It could go the other way. It could be a turnover right there if the other guy picks it up. But then I was thinking about the other day, but when he kicks it, what if the guy's already in the halo? So this is a question I have for the league. Let's say the guy's within 5 yards, the guy punts it. I don't know, does he have to give yards? The guy was already in the halo. Say somebody's 4 yards away from the guy when he kicks it. Can that guy recover the ball? I think he can. But, he just punted. Does he deserve – no, it's a punt. So I guess no yards wouldn't even come into that factor because he's just going to get it. And he punted it. Yeah, so disregard that, yeah. But if the guy's 4 yards away, like sooner or later somebody's going to get the ball, not the punter. I don't know if that cleared up anything for you guys. But
Would offensive coordinator Paul LaPolice ever call that?
Sure, yeah. I think I've always enjoyed creativity, and I've always enjoyed I've enjoyed the process of I used to get plays for my time in the Bombers off of Twitter. And I'd see somebody run something and I would save it. And I would, like one time in the spring when the coaches all showed up, I'm like, all right, look at these 6 things. And we would look at Twitter and go, all right, well, how are we going to call this? How are we going to protect this? How are we going to align this way? Because we're all just stealing things from others. And all the thing you just want to do is once it works once, you trust it and you go. And I went to Purdue one year to talk to Jeff Brom. Brian Brom played in the CFL before Winnipeg. And we went down and spent the day with them. And they had a lot of respect for what we did, which is nice. Sometimes people, the CFL, they don't understand the motion and all. But these guys knew our league so that we were talking football about a lot of stuff. And I asked them, they run a ton of special plays. Purdue does. Flea flickers, all kinds of. And he had the best advice. I said, well, how do you tell me your philosophy? Tell me what goes. He's like, the best part of my philosophy is once it works in practice once, you never run it again. So now you're comfortable calling it. So, like, I've seen enough dribble kicks to go, yeah, we just got to practice it and get in a second and extra situation and work on it. I've seen enough of it.
You saw Greg laughing there when you mentioned Brian Brom, because we were actually talking about him before you joined us here on the show.
I know, exactly. That's what I'm like, how often does Brian Brom come up in conversation?
Why are you talking about Brian Brom?
We were trying to figure out the most obscure Rider quarterback matchup ever.
And it was Brian Brom versus who? Ryan Smith?
Brett Smith, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That actually stems from Hamilton's bringing back Timmy Chang this weekend to honor him
as a distinguished alumnus.
Yes. So we were
With
just
his
like,
one
that's
touchdown
pretty obscure to do, and we just started.
You're really
thinking,
doing that? That's really
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah, that's really a thing.
Okay. I'm doing that game, so I'll be there. I'm the sideline reporter on that game. So.
With all 42 passes that he completed and his 7 interceptions and 1 touchdown, they're honoring him as a distinguished alumnus.
Okay. Well, isn't he the head coach Hawaii?
Hawaii,
Yeah, with an 8-18 record, so I still don't understand it. I'm trying to figure it out.
The recruiting thing, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe. It's Hawaii. How hard is it to recruit? But speaking of coaching, are you interested in getting back into coaching? Like, are you going to add to the sign that I love so much?
So I would say this. Like, I always try to do this. I think I've been successful in my career because you're worried about the job you have, not the one you don't. And, I did TSN for 3 years, 10 years ago, and it was kind of the right move for family. And, I always felt like my job is to keep it simple and teach to people. Now, I did the same thing when I was the offense coordinator and the head coach of the Bombers and the OC and the head coach of your job is to keep it simple for the players, but make sure you communicate and let people learn. I'm trying to just do the same thing now on TV. So, every situation will be different. Like right now for me, though, I have 3 young kids. One's in high school, 2 are in, I have an 8th grader and a 6th grader. So, like for me to disappear for 8 months out of the year and go, let's say I go to Regina to work starting in April and come home in November, I just have never done that in my career. So I've always been, my family's either moved with me or I've been in the same city. So, maybe in a year or 2, but like right now, I'm just going to make sure that I do the best job I can for TSN and we'll see what's out there. But, I'm not jumping on a table to kind of leave family, if that makes sense, guys.
100%.
Doing these videos, obviously you said teaching, is that something that you've always kind of wanted to do outside of coaching, is to find another way to reach young football players and just bring out their skills?
You mean the YouTube stuff I'm doing?
Yeah.
So basically here's what happened, and it's a rider story. So last year, so for those who don't know, 10 years ago, there used to be the GMC Coaches Playbook, Paul LaPolice, sponsored by GMC. We're on every halftime. I did stuff online, all this things, but GMC paid a substantial dollar amount for the rights. And, nowadays the TV has changed so much. We don't have a sponsor for that segment yet. We're working towards that. So there's just not as many opportunities like preseason games or not preseason, pregame shows. So you just have less. Like I'll have this weekend there isn't, but like last weekend I had a segment and we talked about receiver play, Milt and I. But like 10 years ago, it was every weekend. Like I had Friday, Saturday, I'd have a bunch of these. So like last year, when Zach Collaros got hit by Pete Roberson and, got the headbutt, I didn't like what a lot of people were talking about. A lot of people were like, oh, yeah, they got to protect the quarterbacks. And then people were like, well, they can't do that to Zach. Oh, it's not a big deal. So, like, I actually put something out on Twitter. I just recorded something. I just sat here in my office and I just talked about it. And 400 people liked it, right? And I was like, you know what? I can do coaches' playbooks from this way. Like, I was surprised how many people, watched it and said, yeah. And I was like, well, that was just like if I was on air talking. What's the difference? So then I kind of started I didn't start till like week 15 last year. And I just started recording a play. I'm like, hey, let me talk about this and teach this. And I kind of went through some software. And so this off season, I spoke to a rider quarterback named JT O'Sullivan. If you guys remember that name.
He had a touchdown pass in preseason too.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah,
I still think he needs to own a sports bar because that's the best name for a sports bar.
Yes.
O'Sullivan's.
So he has a website or he has a YouTube channel called the QB School. So I'd recommend anybody who likes the NFL to follow it. And he did a thing on CFL NFL. And the funniest line he said, you guys will appreciate that. It's like, I didn't really remember the coverages. I didn't really understand them. I know there's an extra guy. He goes, you know what? If I ever got in practice or anything, I just threw it to Dressler. It's like, and then I was like, that guy's smart.
Yeah. Just play.
So after I read that, I watched that. I was like, okay, we were cross paths. I sent him a note. And I said, listen, I did some of this last year. So I posted probably 30 things last year going up to Grey Cup. And this offseason, I kind of watched his stuff and I wanted to get some advice. So he wrote me right back. He's like, I know you are, Paul. Yeah, call me later. And we talked through. And so I got a better mic. I got better lighting. I changed my office around. And then I started just posting. I just started putting stuff up and stuff, like people like the behind the scenes. What's cut down day look like? What's training camp day look like? I was in Hamilton one day and I was like, all right, here's why teams travel for training camp, and just anything I can put out to kind of teach about the game. And again, this helps me because I'm watching film all the time anyways. So when I watch a game film, I save clips. I'm like, all right, I could talk about this. It just helps me do my own work for prep for TSN. So it's been fun. And yeah, like I just kind of enjoy that process, and just learn how to do all the other stuff stinks. But all what you guys go through, the thumbnails, the editing, the putting it up and rendering and all that stuff. So I'm fighting through all that stuff.
It doesn't get any more fun. Let me tell you that.
I'm on. You guys got to get me some followers here. I was on a Bomber podcast, so this is going out to all the Rider fans. I went on a Bomber one. I got 100 followers. So, this podcast got to get me 120 followers. Easy.
All right, challenge accepted here, Rider Nation.
And it's at Coach Lapo is my YouTube page. So no, it's been fun. I've kind of enjoyed it. I'll try to do 2 breakdowns every week. I try to do the 5 plays of the week, and I try to do something teaching about the game. Like I've been doing through coverages. I've been teaching coverages. And it's funny, like I was on the sideline last week and a bunch of people came up to me after the game and said, I like your stuff on YouTube. I'm like, oh, you're the person watching it, right? Let's go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's always a weird feeling. I had someone recognize me at the Regina Red Sox game this past week. It's like,
nice.
This is a different feeling.
All right, great.
But speaking of the sidelines, that's something new you've been doing this year. You've done hits, you've done the panel. What's your preference?
Anything at the stadium is your preference because, as I said, like on the panel, like when you're there at the panel, we're like the fans. We come on for 90 seconds, or we have a 90-second hit where, everyone has 30 seconds to talk, and then the game starts. And then we just sit there and watch the game and try to take notes. And then at halftime, we come up and we each come up with a point. But when you're at the stadium, you see everything. You get to talk to players and coaches before the game. So, I'm just filling in for Matthew Shea and Eddie till he gets back. And so they've had some holes in the schedule because of European soccer. So 10 years ago, I used to do coaches' playbooks from the sideline. I used to do Toronto games and Winnipeg games because no reason to fly me out to the studio when there's a Thursday night Bomber game to start the week. And they had a bunch of those. So I would just start coaches' playbook there. So I've got some experience in it. And it's good because I can see some things maybe somebody else like, hey, they're running defensive linemen on and off the field here. Let's talk about that. So I just see the game a little bit differently. So that's what's been fun. And I'm doing colors. So I've got 3 more colors. I don't know. I think I got 3 next month where I'm doing the color. I did 3 last year. I'm doing at least 3 next month. And then we'll see what the rest of the schedule is like.
You can say you're on a Rider podcast. You just don't want to be around Milt Stiegel.
Yeah, after a while, hearing Milt talk about how pretty he is it's old. I've heard that.
Just ask him to show you his rings, and I'm sure that'll shut the conversation down.
Oh, I can't do that to my guy. Yeah, he only got 2 of them. So,
okay, well, Milt Stiegel, 2007 Grey Cup. Outside of that Grey Cup game, and winning that, obviously, for you as the receivers coach for the Riders then, what was your favorite memory from the 2007 season?
From 2007. I think we started that playoff game. Like, I was very scared. So I said, when we made the playoffs, and for me, my first time working over there, I'd already worked in Winnipeg, but to work in the Riders, I remember when the playoff tickets were for sale. And now you talk about what it had been 20 years since there had been a home playoff game, which is unbelievable to think that. But then I remember going into the office in the morning, and I got there early, and there was already 80 people in line waiting to buy tickets. And that was an amazing feeling. And I was really worried. I remember talking to the late Jim Hobson about it. I was like, oh, we played Calgary in the first game at home. I was like, you know what? If we beat Calgary, we're going to beat BC. And everyone, no. I was like, if we handle the first game with all the pressure, with all the fans, and I think DJ Flick scored on the first play, right? We did a zone read, Kerry pulled it and threw a corner out for a touchdown on the first play, and we were like, whoa, this is going to be a lot of fun. That was a great memory of 07.
Well, years ago, we had Ken. Sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, go ahead, Greg.
Well, yeah, years ago we had Ken Miller on this show, and he told us he yelled at his players once, just once, never again after that. We do not believe that if that's true. Did you ever see Ken Miller yell at the players?
I don't even remember the time he yelled at him. Like, no,
he was like high school or college.
He was like everybody's grandfather, and he was so good. Like, he was awesome to work for. So Kent left. Then Coach Miller got promoted. Then he promoted me to the OC. And then, like, we started that season and we traded away Kerry Joseph. We're like, what? Like, I get the coordinator job. I'm like, what do you mean? Trading away the MVP of the league? Oh, thanks. Right. And, but we did a good job that season. Gary Etcheverry was there, I think, and Richie Hall was there. And we started out 6-0 and really quashed any, oh my God, this team's what are you going to do? We started out 6-0 and then had some problems as quarterbacks got hurt and everything. And, but then that night, I thought he did a masterful job with the 2019. Coach Miller really had us. He did a good job. He let the coaches coach. He gave good advice. He kept the team calm. And I don't know, there probably weren't many coaches that could take you through the end of the 2009 season how he did, through the Grey Cup. So no, he was great. He was great to work for. He was a good man. I enjoyed him a lot. Learned a lot from him. Yeah, still keep in touch with him to this day.
Not gonna lie, I think burnt memory of that game, that final game, was the reaction shot of you.
Oh yeah, everybody sees that.
Yeah, that one is burned into my memory forever because I know how I felt as a fan. I can only imagine what it was like being a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, what people don't get is like, how hard it is to win a championship, and then how many nights that is away from family, how many nights I don't see my daughter, how much, up early, all this, and you do it right, and you just don't do it at the end. You don't do it when it mattered. Yeah, and a funny story with that, I said it today on one of the other things I was doing. So it's 2 days after the game. I go to get my car washed, all the stuff you don't do during a season. So I've got a Ryder car and I take it. It's one of those car washes where you actually get out and they clean it or whatever, and you're inside. And so I was getting something. So my car was getting ready and I went to buy something. So I'm at the counter and I go to pay and I put my hand on the counter. And the woman's like, hey, how are you today? And I'm like, I'm fine, thanks. I just, whatever, got my head down. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. And my hand's on the counter. She puts her hand on my hand and she's like, no, how are you? It's like, oh, you know who I am, huh? I'm like, I'm good. I'm all right. Like, she's like, oh, we were watching and we were thinking about you after I said, oh, I appreciate that. That's what was great about the time at the Riders. How it was a great experience. People are really nice there. It's so many good people.
You coached a lot.
I got yelled at last year. My daughter brought it up. She's like, yeah, remember everyone yelled at you last year? I'm like, yeah, because last year I went, it was either last year or 2 years ago, I went to Regina in the middle of February because I still have a rental property there, the house I used to live in, and I had to paint it when tenants moved out after 10 years. And I'm telling you guys, when I showed up, it was 40 below. It's the coldest day of the year. And it was dark, everything. So, but so many people helped me that week, bent over backwards to help me when I was only there 5 days. So I wrote, I love the people of Saskatchewan. It's the best thing about Saskatchewan is the people. I said, it was not my favorite place to live. And then I was like, why did you have to say that at the beginning? I'm like, because it wasn't. And it was 40 below when I got there. It's freezing cold. And there's no trees. I'm from New England and mountains and ski areas, right? but everyone was yelling at me. So no, I loved my time there. I just like to ski also.
I think we have one ski hill. I think that's what we have here.
No, we've
It's
got
not a real one. It's
three.
manufactured.
I'm sure it's called
We got two. We got two. Chap doesn't exist anymore. We got Mission Ridge and Blackstrap.
Well, Paul, last one for you, and just kind of to finish up here. You did coach in quite a few places here in the CFL. Talk about your time with the Riders here. Was there a place that just kind of stuck out more than any other for a certain reason? Like it could have been a great local spot you ate at, and that was just that was the place.
Yeah, I think what's hard is to say that is like I've been in the league a long time, like since I was 29 when I came into the league, and now I'm 54. So there's been so many different variances of like, eating with family, eating with buddies, going to Montreal with my high school buddies come up to visit. Like so many things in my, my career kind of bumped up. I guess I would have said this, like, I think 16, 17, 18, 19, and this is less of a favorite place. It might be a favorite time. I really enjoyed coming back as a coordinator after being a head coach, working with Osh, because there's a brand new building, beautiful stadium. I was working with Buck Pierce, Bob Wiley, Marty Costello, Kevin Burgoyne. These are all good friends of mine to this day. And having 4 years at the same place in the same role was awesome because you just got to be better at stuff. And Osh gave me a lot of freedom and let me create. And we were able to kind of get better each year and get the players better each year and just kind of grow on what we did system-wise. Like where we jumped from 16 to 19, what we were doing offensively was a lot of fun and really creative that a lot of people like still to this day. I was at a game 2 weeks ago and a coach came up to me. It's like, well, when you watch this sideline, you're going to see a lot of your plays. We got a lot of the stuff you used to run in Winnipeg in this week. And sure, so it's kind of cool to hear that. And so I think those 4 years really were a lot of fun. And it was funny when I took the job there as a OC, everyone there was trying to hire me. They were saying, hey, come here. We'll help you get a head job. I'm like, guys, I don't really, like I said, I care about the job. You care about the job you have, not you don't have. Like, I don't care. I'm not taking this job to become a head coach again. I'm excited to be an OC. I'm excited to all those things that brings. So no, that was a good experience. But we love living in Ottawa. Like that's, one of the problems, the hard parts of, taking jobs is we love Ottawa so much. So my family's not going to move. Like my wife's from Winnipeg. She said, oh, if Winnipeg ever opened, good luck. You can go back there. I'm not going back there. And she's from Winnipeg. So,
I don't blame her. I really don't blame her, to be honest.
That's why we like, we really enjoy here. Ottawa's very nice here.
Well, Paul, thanks so much for joining us here this week on the Piffles podcast. We look forward to seeing more of the videos coming out. Coach's Breakdown with Paul LaPolice on YouTube. Minimum 120 more subscribers.
You got to beat the Winnipeg crew. So at Coach Lapo on YouTube, you got to beat. You got big shoes to fill. So no, thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, appreciate it. Take care, Paul. CFL and TSN's awesome. Paul LaPolice. Yeah,
that was awesome. He can come on anytime he wants. He can be replacement Greg. Screw replacement Steve. He can be replacement Greg.
Get him and Jeff Fairholm on together. I want to hear these stories about each other.
I think so. We'll put the three of us in a corner and let Paul and Jeff just keep on talking. That'd be great.
I'm all for it. So you heard it, Rider Nation. Follow him on YouTube, and we can't let Winnipeg get him more followers than we do, right? We have to beat that.
I have to.
So
come on.
We'll throw out the link on there.
Winnipeg can't even get can barely get a touchdown. Like let's get some followers for Paul LaPolice. Absolutely.
So there's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Let's jump to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. We haven't even talked about really Trevor Harris yet, going on to the 6-game injured list. But to do that, freeing up a roster space, the Riders bring in quarterback Eric Barrier, who was with Winnipeg in the preseason. Didn't look great in that preseason game against the Riders, threw a couple interceptions. My question to you, Greg, is, are you surprised they didn't bring in Mason Fine or Antonio Pipkin?
I think they've seen enough of both. They can move on. I'm surprised it was Barriere, to be honest, because, like you said, he didn't look good. But when you've got Winnipeg also in an injury situation with a Zach Caleros, and if you're going to be petty enough to go grab their guy that already kind of knows their playbook, hey, I love that petty. Like, let's go on tour with the Heartbreakers, because that's the petty I love.
What about Taylor Cornelius?
I am actually surprised that no one's kicked the tires on him yet. To me, he's a guy who, I guess he's one of those guys that LaPolice was just talking about. He's got the tools, but he's a 50% guy that just can't make a pass on the run, especially. So, but he carved up the Riders last year at certain points. So, I'm surprised that no one's talking. Yeah, like I'm surprised no one's talked to him yet.
Okay, stemming off the Trevor Harris thing, we're going to talk about Trevor Harris and the quarterbacks more when we get to our enemy preview of the Argos here. But I want to talk about our power rankings. So in our Piffles power rankings, you can see them on the website, pifflespodcast.com. Both of us had the Riders at number 2. I think is still fair, being 3-0. You don't lose your spot on a bye week. Just the same as
impossible.
Calgary didn't drop last week on our rankings from their bye week. So why should the Riders? It's only fair, right? Steve actually dropped the Riders, saying that, well, Trevor Harris is injured, so they got to drop. He makes a point. You know what? I will fight for Steve on this one. Okay, so I'll play the part of Steve. Let me get into character here. I have a little bit more hair, not much, just a little bit. I think his head is bald. I got to do the Saf face.
There you go.
I have the face going. Okay. Riders, these aren't standings. These are power rankings. Without Trevor Harris, the Riders should drop. And that's the way it is. I don't care that they're 3-0. They should be below BC, who won. Yeah, it was a tight win against a team that they should have beaten by more points. But this day, it's about who you're going up against. And you're going up against a Shea Patterson team. So therefore, the Riders should drop. So, Greg, what do you think?
We don't know. We do not know what a Shea Patterson-led Riders team looks like. A full week at the helm in practice could make all the difference. We don't know if he is the next coming of Tino Sinceri or the next coming of Cody Fajardo in 2019. We have no idea what Shea Patterson is. Cody Fajardo was a third stringer when we signed him and caught lightning in a bottle. This very same thing could happen with Shea Patterson. You need to give the Riders a shot to prove that Shea Patterson is the guy. So here's my thing. If the Riders win this week, is Steve going to put them back up, or is it because it's still not a Trevor Harris-led team? Because his entire point is, well, Trevor Harris is not here. They lost their QB1, so obviously their QB2 is no good.
Okay, and remember, I'm Steve. I'm still playing the part of Steve here.
Yes.
Greg, you're right. You and Alex are right. You're always right. I'm wrong.
Okay, one second.
I don't know what I'm doing. Please hit the ding because you are right. Yes, Greg was right. Greg is right, and that's why on the official power rankings, we went with your guys' choice here. You are right.
Everything Steve is. Like I felt I was talking to Steve there. There we go.
With the face one more time. Steve's never going to take
hate us so much,
man.
He's never like Steve's never leaving. I hope you guys.
Oh, sorry, I got one more thing to say as Steve.
Okay.
I love Chris Streveler. I love him
there you
so
go.
much. He's the best. He's my favorite player of all time, and I support him in everything.
You mean starting quarterback of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Chris Streveler?
He might be, actually. Okay, now, yeah, okay, Steve. I'm done with Steve now. Maybe forever. He might never talk to me again after that.
Okay, we need to talk about one more thing about the power rankings. no team is better than what their record says they are. I am so
yes.
tired of hearing everyone tell me that Edmonton is better than what their record is. No, they have potential. Their record is who they are.
Thank you.
They cannot win a game. If you cannot finish a game, you are what your record says you are. End of story. I'm tired of hearing about how good they are. That team is a tire fire right now. Chris Jones is losing the locker room.
Same thing with Winnipeg. Maybe not necessarily the losing the locker room part, but good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. And right now, through 4 weeks of the CFL season, Edmonton, Hamilton, Winnipeg, all 0-4, all bad teams. I don't care if you're losing by 1 or 100. It does not matter. You're losing. The game is to win. The whole point is to win. And none of them are doing it. So, yes, theoretically, are you better than that? I guess if you're keeping it close. But no, if you were better than 0-4, you would be better than 0-4. So
you have the
I'm with
potential to win games. The fact remains is you can't win games. This isn't a competition. Well, they just outside the playoffs, but man, they gave guys a fight. No one's going to care.
Look at the 2015 Saskatchewan Roughriders after Darian Durant got hurt in that first game. They were in a lot of games. They were 0-9. You're going to tell me they were better than an 0-9 team? No, they weren't, because they were 0-9. That's the way it is. Nobody felt sorry for them, and all of a sudden, because Edmonton's close, we're supposed to feel sorry for them? And, well, they're better than they are. No, they're not. And I saw that last week, and I wanted to wait till this one, just till today's show, because I don't agree with that. So I'm with you. You are what your record says you are. It's so cliche. They are who they thought what they were. The Bears, blah, blah, blah. The Dennis Green rant.
We had him on the hook and we let him off.
Yeah, exactly. But you are what your record says you are. And right now, Winnipeg's 0-4. Sorry, Winnipeg is 0-4, and the Riders are 3-0. So let's just keep that in mind.
But hey,
are the Riders worse than they are because they're only winning by 3 points a game? Like, come on, get out of here. According to Steve.
Hey, at least Winnipeg scored a passing touchdown this week.
That was an awful throw. Anyway, yeah. But okay. Well, let's go into those couple of those games. Not going to get into when the Winnipeg Calgary game might have been the worst quarterback game I've ever seen in my life, and that was Jake Maier was awful. He was exactly what I think he is. That was a Jake Maier game. Zach Collaros was terrible. Chris Streveler came in and was actually better than Collaros, but he was still bad. A lot of the completions that he was making were down at the feet of his receivers.
Yeah, and that final drive he had for that touchdown was
nice catches.
Yeah, like that was a receiver-led drive. Everything was at the receiver's ankles, and they bailed him out. And most of his yards were on that drive. But the fact remains, Zach Collaros, their QB1, through one half, had less yards passing than their kicker's longest field goal.
That was a hell of a kick, though.
That was a hell of a kick.
Yeah, what did Collaros have? 55 yards in that first half. Like it was bad. And he took that shot. He didn't practice the first day of practice this week, which
a thorax.
Thorax injury. Ribs, probably a broken rib, actually. But we might see Chris Streveler getting a start. Steve's going to love that game. Chris Streveler getting a start possibly this week for Winnipeg, but doesn't change the fact that Collaros was terrible and that was bad quarterbacking. But with that game, Winnipeg and Calgary had a good finish with the kind of the back and forths and the overtime. Hamilton and Ottawa, awful game for 58 minutes and then got saved by, a couple scores by both teams late and then a walk-off field goal. Can a game be saved? Does 2 okay minutes at the end of a game save the first 58 to you?
It looks great for highlight packages, but if you sat around watching the entire game for 3 hours, you're ready to run your head through a wall. Like, I watched most of that Ottawa Hamilton game, and it was like, this is bad football.
And that's the
And then
thing is
also-
I can appreciate a good defensive game. I still think one of the best games I've seen was the New England Patriots and Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl.
because it was Patriots.
Well, agree to disagree. But
It was a Patriots, Patriots victory.
what both those defenses did was incredible.
Oh yeah,
Against those offenses, because those were stacked offenses. What those
yeah,
defenses
but like
did,
it was a
fantastic.
strong defensive game. It was best on best, like slugging it out both sides, no inches given. Great football that way. But
these two games though,
you have QBs
not
missing. You've got QBs missing receivers by miles. You've got just guys getting hit in the mitts and dropping the balls. Those are bad football teams. Like, it's bad.
like I'm glad that the finishes of the game are good, because when you look at the stats, somebody posted on X, and I forgive me for not remembering who it was. I should have wrote it down. But like 44% of the games are decided within 3 points or something like that, or in the last minute, whatever it is. So the ending of these games, you have to tune into, because there's no blowouts right now. They're generally a 1-score game across the board. So that's ultimately that's good for the game. You want to be able to sell that if you're, the league, if you're TSN. But I don't buy the fact that, a good finish between Hamilton and Ottawa, that didn't save the game. That was just an awful game, and it just happened to come down to Ottawa getting the ball and kicking a field goal.
The worst part about the Hamilton-Ottawa game, it was terrible coaching by Hamilton at the end. Like, they lost that game.
What is Scott Milanovic doing with the squib kick?
It wasn't even that Ottawa made this great comeback. It was just bad play calling by Hamilton. Like, we dodged a bullet on that hiring. I'm telling you that right now.
I was thinking about that when the game happened and people were reacting to that squib kick and like, Milanovic, what are you doing? I was like, you know what? I'm glad that he's not our head coach right now. Mm-hmm. Especially when they're 0-4 and something. I mean, they're going to bring Jeff Reinbold back, I guess, as special teams coordinator.
I missed that. Right? Yeah, they fired their guy. So
they fired their special teams coordinator. So what else are you going to do? You might as well bring back Jeff Reinbold. Yeah, we definitely made the right choice here with Corey Mace instead of Scott Milanovic. Okay, one thing before we get to this Rider game that we haven't talked about yet, did a little bit with Paul LaPolice, the dribble kick. So many people saying that's a stupid rule, get rid of it. They should have got rid of it in the offseason when they had the chance. It makes us look Bush League. No. You know what makes us look Bush League? Rewarding failure. Giving an automatic single point for the Rouge.
I'm not going to go that far.
When the ball goes through the end zone. If it's conceded for the yardage, for the field position, that's fine with me. But when it goes through the end zone, and it was BC and Toronto in week 6 of 2019, where BC won on a missed field goal because Chris Rainey caught the ball in the back of the end zone on the goal line, or on like the very back line of the end zone. And it was a single point. Michael Riley didn't even look happy that his team won. He was like, golly, like, really? We won this because of this stupid rule? We won on a missed field goal? Like, no, that to me is more Bush League than a dribble kick. I like this dribble kick. You know what it tells me is that Jason Moss is doing a better job coaching his team than everyone else is defending him.
The funniest part about this one is they saw Jeshron Antwi come in and call the timeout. I know, and they recognized it right away. Called the timeout, got their guys right. So what does Montreal do? Swaps the sides of the field, flips it, and they lost Jeshron, and he wasn't covered. Like, I think it was DT, Derek Taylor, that pointed that out, what happened there. So yeah, that was a coaching error on Toronto, not telling their guys you still need to watch out where Antwi is. But I stand by Lapo said, like, you need to play on that guy. Like, you go like a spy move, like have a guy on him at all times.
Have one of your linebackers just follow him around, and then you can drop everybody else back if you want. That's fine. Why they can't cover it, I don't understand that. Maybe they can tweak the rule and it actually has to travel 10 yards. Maybe, sure.
It'll never be used again. It will never be used.
But then they might as well just get rid of it altogether then if they're going to tweak it, right? So
that's going to kill it. Right there.
This game originates from rugby. This is a type of rugby play. You would think that with CFL fans as a whole, love the quirkiness, love the weirdness, embrace the weirdness that is the CFL as opposed to the NFL with the rules. People hate this one.
Well, like, this one is. I don't know if people actually
like extremely hate it. Canadian.
It is the loudest of the. I'm choose my words carefully. Loudest of the loudmouths that are calling it Bush League and how it needs to go, and it makes the CFL a joke. And this Canadian football, 3 downs, 12 men, like bigger field, 1 point bigger balls. Like the quirkiness, the oddball Canadian rules is one of the earliest Simpsons jokes I remember talking about the CFL. Besides the
and Lisa's how many looking through the
yeah. When she Smooth Jimmy Apollo episode that I love so much, when her and Homer are bonding, and like people are aware of how quirky the game is. The Sickos Committee has probably done the most to promote the CFL in the States, more than the CFL has.
Yeah, probably
because of the oddball rules. They and part of it is the punt. Part of it is last year when Edmonton blew the kick coverage for a single for the win. Like, it's the chaos of Canadian football is the beauty of it. Yes, it's a fun game when it's played very, very well, but sometimes the chaos is half the fun. And sometimes you just need to enjoy it. And the dribble kick or the onside punt, whatever the heck you want to call it, is a great play that only the Alouettes do. The fact that no one else does it,
nobody else,
show it. All you're doing is punishing the Alouettes for being smarter than the rest of the league, which is garbage.
I'm with you. I like it. I think it's great. Keep it in. If you don't like it, defend it better. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Leave the rule the way it is.
Antwi comes in, you have someone on his butt.
Yeah.
And then you just play zone or play man. I don't care. But at some point, you have to understand when Montreal is deep yards on second down, that play is definitely coming out at some point.
All right. Well, let's get back to talking Riders here. Riders Argos this Thursday, 7 p.m. Mosaic Stadium. Looks like there's, I think, as of right now on Tuesday night when we record this, it looked like there was about 24,000 seats sold, 24, 25, something like that. So should be a pretty decent crowd for a Thursday game in the summer when everyone's trying to get the hell out of town and go to the lake. That's pretty decent for me. So I know some people won't be happy with that. I think that's actually a pretty decent number. So
last time they had a Thursday night game, one of their biggest sponsors had to buy over 1,000 seats to win because they had an international convention in town.
Oddly enough, somebody who was there for that is coming back.
He's also going to be here for that game. Yeah, he's going to be here this one.
But anyway, Trevor Harris, obviously that's the big story in this one. On the 6-game injured list, Shea Patterson is going to get the start. We talked to Lapo about it. Do you think we're going to see much of a change from the offense?
I think there's going to be, I hope there's more option plays with him and Willett. I think you're going to have to move that pocket around. You're going to have to do a lot more play action, especially considering we're down Sean Bain Jr. too, by the looks of it, due to personal reasons. So I'm guessing a Joe is going to be out there. So yeah, you're going to have to stick to Patterson's strengths, and I think moving that pocket around is something he can do better than Trevor Harris.
I think they're going to continue trying to run it, like Lapo said. And they finally got that run game going last week, so there's no reason to try and not. But I also expect Toronto to stack that box, and there's going to be chances to exploit their secondary. And Toronto secondary has given up some pretty big plays so far this year. They've been very beatable back there. So you still have KSB, you still have Stearns, you still have Emelis, a Joe, right? Like there's still very talented receivers here without Sean Bain.
Mitch Picton in a relief role will get you those first catches.
Yep, and Keyshawn Johnson's going to take the starting spot for Sean Bain, and he looked great in the preseason. So that actually might be a good thing for Shea Patterson. Is Patterson's been getting a lot of number 2 reps. Same with Keyshawn Johnson over the last 3 weeks. So they might already have a connection just from being on the B team in practice.
Well, that's why Durant and Getzlav always had such a great connection, is because they got those second team reps together so much.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be chances to exploit the Toronto defense, but they still have to stay committed to the run. Like Paul LaPolice said, that's something that you just can't get away from. And I mean, it's Ouellette versus his former team as much as it is, Corey Mace versus his former team. So these guys will know each other very well. And AJ's really going to want to put on a show this week. And if we get the same kind of run blocking that we did, especially in that fourth quarter against Hamilton last week, then I really like our chances in this game. But I want to see more quick plays. We've been seeing a lot of really good pass protection from this Riders team, from the offensive line with Trevor Harris. Harris has had time, and it's allowed us to run that intermediate stuff with, Jareth Stearns, KSB over the middle, and to a lesser extent, Sean Bain as well, too, going deep in the first game against Edmonton. I think we'll change it up a little bit where you cut that short, at least to start the game. Get Shea Patterson's confidence up. Get him some hitch passes, some screens, some quick outs, something just to get him, get some rhythm going. And then you can start, opening up the playbook, throwing it downfield a little bit more. That's what I think we're gonna see, is just get him in a rhythm. So it's not just a couple 2-and-outs. Get him a couple quick passes, move the chains a couple times, get the feel of the game, and then let it go from there.
Oh,
so
100%.
I think that's what you're gonna see this year.
100%. You got to build that foundation with those short passes at the beginning. Like you said, get that rhythm. And then, you start working your way further, deeper out. And then, or they could surprise us all and go for a quick shot, try to get Toronto on their heels, because they're probably expecting him to run the ball, keep it short. Maybe you try to open the top fast and go, no, you need to respect this. Even if they make it or they don't. Like, make them respect that deep ball.
Paul LaPolice talked about that DJ Flick touchdown in the 2007 West semifinal. It was a play action. Maybe that's the play. They're probably expecting the Riders to run the ball on first down to start the game the first time that they have the ball. Do a play action and just take a shot. Why not?
Like I said, even if you miss it, you make them respect that you're actually going to go deep. If you shorten the playbook too much, they are, like we said, they're going to stack the box. And they're going to be all up against the line. And you don't want that. You want them to respect that.
Toronto actually has a surge in their running game as well, too. Kadeem Carey has had a pretty decent start to the season, and so have their other running backs. They've broken off a couple nice long runs. Would you say that stopping their run game, which the Riders have done very, very well this season so far?
I am not concerned about this team's run stopping right now. Like, they have, and yes, it's a short sample size because we've only played 2 teams technically in 3 weeks. But James Butler, not a joke. Kevin Brown, not a joke. Like, they choked out that run offense. I don't see that stopping this week with Kadeem Carey. And yes, Kadeem Carey has caused me nightmares as a Stampeder, but I think the Riders should be all over it.
Yeah, I think if you can stop that run the way that you have been, you should be fairly fine. I still like Cameron Dukes as a quarterback. I still hope he's our guy in 2025, but I don't love their receiving group right now with who is it? Coxie is out on the 6-game list. So that's, to me, that's their big play guy. So, and I like the way our defensive backs have been playing, especially last week against Hamilton. They shut them down. I know they gave up some yards in the fourth quarter, but generally that game was not as close as it was.
No, it was not.
So I actually really like the Riders' chances in this one, even without Trevor Harris as quarterback. What does worry me a little bit is the Canadian depth on special teams that we're going to be missing. Adam Auclair and Thomas Bertrand Houdon will be out for this game. I think Bertrand Houdon is a bigger loss on specials than we're probably going to hear about, because
he forced that fumble in the right off the opening kickoff.
Yeah.
But hey, as long as we got two Onyeka, we're okay.
Yeah, Kosi Onyeka should make the roster this week just based off that, and I'm not sure who else is going to be on. But by the time you hear this episode, the depth chart will probably be out anyway, so we'll know for sure who's in, who's out. I
really hate short weeks. It's like, oh my god, oh, the injury report's already out. Oh yeah, we play in 2 days. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, well let's get to our pick'em this week. I'm horrible at this. I should really stop. Another week of 1-3.
I'm fine where you're at.
One of the losses for me is a win because I'm still picking Winnipeg. As long as I'm wrong about them, I'm going to keep picking them for the greater good. The greater good. You love that little clip.
I love that clip. I'm glad I put it in the thing. But I guess we're going to the picks right now.
Yeah, we'll go to our picks right now. So it's against the spread.
Piffles Picks.
Well, folks, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
I'm so close to that 52%. That's all I wanted to be by the end of the season.
I forgot we had that. Yeah. And remember, it's against the spread. It's not just straight up pick 'em. So I'd have a slightly better record than 4-12 if I did the pick 'em. But against the spread, I'm awful. Hopefully I'm wrong with the Winnipeg again this week. So the first game, obviously, the Rider game, we'll start there. Toronto at Saskatchewan. I'm going to cheat with the line here. I kind of saw it. I know that Toronto is the favorite.
We're going by opening. We're going by opening.
3.5.
4?
Oh, Toronto.
It opened actually Saskatchewan -1.5.
Interesting.
Winnipeg. Toronto is now in some places as high as a 3-point favorite. I've seen Saskatchewan as a 5-point underdog in spots. So I am going. I'm taking Saskatchewan.
It's 3. So what are we saying? It's 3, or
we're saying Saskatchewan's the favorite because that's we play by the opening. That is what we've always done.
And it was 1.5.
1.5.
I think the Riders win this. Honestly,
so do I. But I'll be taking the 5 points just because I like value. With real money.
Ottawa at Winnipeg, and like the clip just said, I don't care what the spread is. I'm taking Winnipeg for the greater good. I'd imagine that just because they're at home, Winnipeg would be favored by like 3 or something.
Close, 2.5.
Okay,
and that line has not moved. That line is static. It has not moved at all.
You know how it works. I pick Winnipeg and I'm wrong, so I'm taking Winnipeg to cover that and win.
I'm torn. That's a small line, and Ottawa's bad too. But I will take Ottawa plus 2.5. I will take Ottawa plus 2.5. I know they won the last game, but this is where the CFL's loudest stadium assisted fans live. So, but I'm still taking Ottawa.
Calgary at Montreal probably should be the blowout that I would expect the line to show. I'm going to guess it's Montreal by 8.5.
So close, 9.5.
9.5. The way that games are going this year, though, like there's been a lot of close games. I'm
but not
tempted
with Montreal.
Yeah, that's true. They're beating the boots off they're just kicking the crap out of everybody. 10 points against Toronto last week, but that was
this is in Montreal. And this is Montreal.
That's in Montreal.
I'm taking Montreal with the points. So on the spread. Like they're covering that spread.
I'm gonna take Calgary to cover that spread. Montreal still wins. I think it'll be like 7 or 8 points.
Okay. All right.
And BC and Hamilton. Now, before we get into this,
okay,
let's have some fun here because we don't do that here on the Piffles podcast nearly enough. We don't have enough fun.
We're nothing but straight football talk.
Very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton announced that they're bringing back
we talked about this with
Timmy Chang for their alumnus distinction.
Alumnus of distinction.
Yeah.
Oh, alumnus
so
of distinction. Sorry, I said it backwards with LaPolice. Yeah.
Alumnus of distinction. All 1 touchdown and 7 interceptions of Timmy Chang. All 42 career completions. And I
on 2 teams, technically.
Yeah. That just made me think. Well, first off, I posted that in our DM chat group. I was like, what? This is a little bit ridiculous.
And then you pointed it out. I'm like, he had to have a longer career than that. And I looked it up. I'm like, nope.
He sure
and
didn't.
then I made fun of his. My favorite part is then I watched that video again. And I'm like, okay, so they got his 1 touchdown. And then a bunch of the parts of the video are of him warming up. He's not even wearing shoulder pads. I'm like, what are they doing?
And you said in our chat group after we were kind of talking about this that maybe Rocky Butler in the Plaza isn't so far off.
Like if you're going to honor him, I understand they're not like honoring him in the state, like they're not hanging a number up, they're not making a plaque but
he's just gonna be there and they'll be like, hey guys, it's Timmy Chang, remember he was here? And everybody be like, yeah.
Well, and before the show, so like you and I, because we had time to wait before Paul came on, and we just I started looking up obscure Rider quarterbacks for the most obscure.
Which obscure quarterback should the Riders bring back to honor for an alumnus of distinction night?
Who did I say? Keith Price had similar numbers. Well, except he had 3 touchdowns and 1 interception on like 30 passes. It's like
I kind of like Lapo saying JT O'Sullivan. Maybe he's one of them.
Did he even hit the field? And he was 0 before 0 was cool.
He was 0. Yeah. I think it was just preseason. He threw a touchdown to a wide open guy. I'll never forget that. We sat on the east side of Taylor Field on the 24-yard line in section 27. On the opposite side of the field is where that pass went. That guy, that receiver, I forget who it was like 30 yards wide open. It was ridiculous. So his 1 touchdown pass in the preseason, I could have made.
I still stand by JT O'Sullivan's. It sounds like a great place to get potato skins.
Probably really good fish and chips. I said Heath Rylance would be a good one to bring back. That's a pretty.
I stand by Dennis Guile is the nearest and dearest to
That's my guy. I'm the president of his fan club.
But it's like, actually, I kind of want to take this to the listeners. What is the best obscure Rider quarterback, or better yet, like you and I before, we're talking obscure Rider matchups, because like we said, Brett Smith and Brian Braum was amazing. Like anything with Tino Sinceri, who knows? Like there
Justin Goltz
putting on a suit and tie.
Yeah.
No, what a I almost swore about him. But
okay, so we'll put that out there on social as well too. Who do you think the Riders should bring back? This is a gaffe, of course. I don't actually think they should bring back Heath Rylance. Although in the game of fun, that would be hilarious to me if they did that the same way Hamilton is.
I
'Cause this
just-
is pretty ridiculous.
I'm just trying to figure out why. Like, if someone can explain to me why they're
Sense.
honoring Timmy Chang, of like, are we going to bring back Keith Price just to go? Hey, Keith Price
Well,
is in the
it's
house.
not like he's a good coach either. Like his record's not good.
Well,
You could bring back. You
8-18
said
as
his
a
name.
head coach of Hawaii.
At least bring back. I mean, you could bring back Steve Sarkisian. At least he has a pretty successful coaching career.
Like that would make sense. Bring back
Yeah.
Sark. Like, why not? Like, fine, but like, yeah, like this seems so out of left field. Like, did there? This feels like the halftime show of the Grey Cup for Saskatchewan. Did the original guy cancel, and they just who can we get? And it's either Timmy Chang or the other half of Florida Georgia Line or what?
You'd be like, geez, you guys know like Rob Hitchcock is still there. Mike Moriali lives there. How many guys still live in Peter Diakowski? Bring him in. He's got to be doing something. Like, come on, you can bring in somebody. Andy Fantu's, well, he's probably working during the game, but bring
Just
Luke
show the
Tafters
video
in.
King Kong Mosca hitting Cap over the head with his cane. Like Timmy Chang? Come on.
Oh, and you haven't won a championship in 25 years. I guess this is what you do.
Timmy Chang.
Anyway, BC at Hamilton. BC's got to be favored. I would assume we'll go 7.5 is my guess.
It opened at 5.5.
5.5.
Line has moved. You can get Hamilton at +11. But we take our spread is at the opening, so 5.5.
Oh yeah, give me BC on that one. That one's an easy one to me.
Well, considering they're honoring Timmy Chang, who's going to will them to victory, I am definitely taking BC.
All right. Well, we'll see what. I can't believe they're bringing back Timmy Chang.
Is he in town? He has to be in town. He's like, hey guys, can I get tickets? Hey, Timmy Chang's in town. Should we honor him? Sure, why not? Like,
Yeah, we got nothing else going on. There's no theme game announced for this one. Bring back Timmy Chang.
Alumnus of distinction. What distinction does he have?
I can't wait for that 8-second highlight package.
Oh, like my mind, the AI clips that are going to get pulled out of this. I can only imagine what this is going to be. Greg loses his mind over Timmy Chang.
I hope this is one of them.
Oh my lord,
But
Timmy
Yeah.
freaking Chang.
Timmy Chang. But hopefully next week when we come back, we're talking about a Rider win. I actually think this is the first real, I don't want to say first real test for the Riders, but it's definitely their toughest test. Not only just in their competition of who it is, but also doing it without QB1. So we're going to get a real sense of what this team is truly made of, even if they lose. I'm not too
Do you say
terribly
they're
worried
better
if
than
they
what
do.
their record says they are?
I will still say they're better than 3-1, because that's what we do around here. Is we say teams are better than they are. But if they are to keep it close, if they keep showing that fight, then I won't be too terribly worried going forward. This is a tough month of July for the Riders. When you look at the schedule, you got Toronto here. The nice thing is when they go to BC next week, they have a couple extra days rest. So they're playing BC, who's only going to have 5 days in between games, or 6 games, or 6 days, and the Riders will have 9. So they'll have some extra time. Then they have a shorter week going to Montreal, and then they're home to Winnipeg the following week. So I'm assuming that Winnipeg is probably going to, knock on wood, be a little bit better.
That'll be the game they turn it around, probably. But
Probably. But it's a tough run.
Well, it was a tough schedule with or without Trevor Harris in the lineup. Yeah. And we didn't really talk about it. Yeah, he's on the 6th game, but he's on the 6th game as long as they don't need him to be on the 6th game, or so long as they need him on the 6th game. So if Patterson can show he can run this offense, there's no panic on bringing him back.
No.
So they can bring Harris off that 6th game at any time, because it sounds like it's not that big a deal. but
And with the way that you can,
matter most.
and with the way that you can take people off the 6-game injured list now, before, like years ago, it was you can only bring one off per half of the season. Now you can bring off, anybody whenever you feel like. It's just their whole salary counts. I mean, you're expecting to pay Trevor Harris that whole salary anyway against the cap. That's the goal, is to make sure that he's healthy enough to be able to pay that salary and have it count against the cap. So if you bring him back after 2 games, fine.
So be it. But if Shea Patterson shows he can run that offense for 6 games, or even 4 out of the 6, or
You might
if
as
you
well
go 3
keep
and
him on
3
there.
over that time, holy crap, the money you can save that you can use later in the season when NFL cuts happen.
Yep. But I think it'll be a pretty good game at Mosaic Stadium. We're gonna have to bring our A game as fans. I think the defense is going to not need to score, but they're going to have a pretty good game to will the Riders to win here. So, but I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good one. Friend Daniela Ponticelli is coming back for that game too, so it'll be nice to see her cheering on the Riders, which she does. So it'll be fun. I think it'll be a fun Thursday night at Mosaic Stadium. But that'll do it for us this week here on the Piffles podcast. Thanks for listening wherever you find us, or watching on SaskTel, Max TV on demand, or on YouTube. Piffles podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. And of course, special thanks always go out to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company, who now have Tap House open with new exclusive beers in the tap house only, in the tap room only. So if you're in Saskatoon,
Now we really need to do training camp next year.
no kidding. Could you imagine us at training camp and then just spending the rest of the day at Churchill Brewing? That'd be fun. Let's do that.
Live hits.
Absolutely.
Churchill.
But new stuff, which is great because I love their current stuff and would like to try some of this new exclusive stuff to just the tap room. So if you're in Saskatoon, give them a shot. Take a look, see what they have, and report back. Let us know how it is. But thanks for everybody for making this show possible. We'll leave you like we always do with Tyler Gilbert and Ghost Behind Your Mind.